Creating micro animatronics is an advanced topic, but I've created this tutorial in a really slow fashion that any beginner can use to enhance their own building capability in this game. And I'll be sharing essential knowledge that helps you mitigate a lot of the frustrations with working with moving platforms and creating things like these little cute mushrooms we've got here. So the lessons are designed to be followed in order, but you can jump ahead. And I would encourage you to watch it through because there's lots of little bits of information shared that is just going to make this actually doable for you if you haven't done this before. So I really hope you enjoy it. If you get any value out of this, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. It really helps me out. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. Okay, the star of the show, the moving platform rotation, and this piece can be found under the scenery tab. Go to props, animatronics, and I've got them favorited here. If you don't have them favorited, you'll find them down the list. I do recommend you favorite them because you'll use them a lot. But what you can do is place your moving platform on the terrain or on the grid. And one of the first things I'll say is you'll notice that it starts animating. So if we pause it and we look at its access point, it can give you a false impression of where it's facing. So what I recommend you do is either place it paused or come into the settings and change its activation from loop to deactivated or on trigger. And that'll reset the animation. Now when you're moving this thing around, you can be confident that it's on its own pivot point. The reason for that is that the pivot point itself is at the very base, right in the center, and it runs all the way up this pole, and that is how it rotates. And the rotating element has an attachment point, which is up here, which is a separate pivot, which you can't control, but it's where you attach things to. So that's the platform in a nutshell, and there's a way to organize these in hierarchies. So platforms, they have a parent-child relationship. So unlike groups where you select bits of scenery and group them, so I've got two platforms here, and if I press I can use multi-select, select them both with the shift key. I can group these two together. Okay. So these are grouped, and I can now move this group as one. But there's no relationship between this piece or that piece. They both sit inside the group. So if we edit the group, I can move them independently again. When I come out of the group, I move them as a whole. That's important to understand because it's not the same as attaching them to each other. So you can only have one group. So I can't have groups within side groups, but you can have nested platforms within side platforms. So to demonstrate the difference between a group and the hierarchy, I've got this platform labeled at 1. I'm going to duplicate it by pressing Ctrl X and moving it out. And I'll call it 2. And then I'll do the same thing again. 3. So select it. Rename it 3, enter. And what we've got is 3 independent platforms. They're not grouped. And what I can do is take 3 and hit the M key. Make sure add to building is on and snap to position is on is useful as well. And I can attach it to 2. So it tells me, do I want to attach it to 2 or 1? So I'll attach it to 2. Click. And now that snapping is on, it's going to align it to the top of its moving platform piece. And now I've got 1 and 2 and 3. So when I select 2, 3's also selected because it's a child of 2. And I can no longer move these independently from this perspective. I have to move them as a entity. So if I use the advanced tool, I'll be moving 2. To edit 3, I've got 2 options. I can select 2 and double click on it. And then I can pick 3 and move it independently. Or I can come into 2 and then come to the advanced settings and go attach scenery, which is the same as double clicking on it. Now that's really important when you've got platforms on top of platforms, very hard to select. So now that I've got that as a group, that's a child of a parent, so not a group but a hierarchy. I can press M on the move key and then attach it to 1. So now I've got a chain. I've got 1, 2, 3 in a hierarchy. So if I select it and move it, I'm moving 1. If I double click on 1, I can move 2, and so on. I can't, now that I'm inside 1, double click anymore to go up a level. So if I'm editing 1 by double clicking on it and I want to get to 3, I can no longer do that because I'm editing anything that's attached to 1, so only 2 can be selected. So how do I get to 3? Well, I can right click a couple of times, get out of it completely, and double click directly on 2. Now I can select 3. So that's really important if you're trying to go up the chain. You can't just double click and double click and double click like you'd expect. You have to come right back out, so right clicking all the way out, and double click on the one that is the parent of the piece you want to select. So I'll do that again. I want to select 3, so I'll double click on 2. Now I'll press on 3 and I can move it. The other way to do that is to click on, say, your base one, number 1, and I can come in and press the attach scenery button. And let's say this is nested or hidden. I can drag and I'll select it. And now that I've got it, I can move it. But if I want to get up the chain, I'm going to have just to click once, come to advanced, attach scenery, and click again and go up the chain. So I'll do that again. I'll click it, attach, click it, attach, click it. And that's how you can navigate up and down. Once you're in a hierarchy, you can't go back down. So if I'm on level 3, the only way to get back is to go done and start from the bottom again. So it is pretty clunky, but you can at least make a hierarchy. So one other important thing is that you can have multiple children at the same level. So if I take the base one and let's double click on it to edit it and then select 2, I can actually duplicate this, Control X. I'll just move it out so we can see it. And now we've got a fork. So I'll move this one that way and you can visualize the hierarchy. So this one is 1, and then inside 1 is 2 and another 2, and inside this 2, if I right click all the way out, double click on that one, I've got that 3. So that's down this path, and right click all the way out and then double click on that one. This is double click on number 2, then I've got 3, 2, 1 down that path. But if I double click here, I've got 2. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's say this parent has got 2 children and each child has its own child. So think of it like a grandparent system. And now we can move the whole lot together. Now why this is interesting is the rotation of this head will affect these 2. So if I turn this on to loop and we just make it go medium, okay, they're rotating around its parent because the parent is basically, think of it like it's a gear that they're connected to. Okay, and if we take that back and we want to get back to its original position, go back to on trigger, and let's say we want to move these children out. So I'm double clicking on them and I right click and then I double click on this one, move that out. Now I've got a bit of an interesting pattern. So this one's going to rotate on medium. Then if I select this one and I change that to medium and turn that to loop and do the same for here, medium, loop. So now they will rotate and the bottom will rotate. Okay, so we're all keen to get into these animatronics, and there's some fundamentals that I want to cover. really quickly. And if you've never sort of played with the grids and the world axes, there's a few things to be aware of because they will trip you up. And when you're trying to create alignment later on, that's going to be important to understand. So we'll spend a few minutes here just looking at alignment. And if you didn't know, when you move a moving platform like this, pressing the M key, if you got stick to surface on, it'll basically stick to the ground. If you turn that off and go to the world axis, you'll see that it's actually now under the ground because the world axis is not the same as the terrain, because the terrain can change shape, right? It's all over the place. So that's a really important one. But the gotcha is, let's say if I've moved this platform and we take that off and we put the stick to surface on, okay? And that's just placed there nicely on the ground. Now if I come to press X for advanced move again, and then I turn on the grid, this time it jumps in. If I undo that and then press X again, now the world grid's saying it's above the ground. So we've got two world grids and it's a little bit random which one will show up. So to make sure you've got the actual world grid, not this fake one, which I don't know what happens, you can change the axis with it selected. So if I go to relative and then back to world and then relative and then back to world, eventually after 5 clicks you'll get the true world axis. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because we want to use the world axis to find, our true north, a way to align multiple platforms, because when we're creating sliders and little micro movements, having a point of reference is really important for getting these things aligned. So let's have a look at how that impacts. So I'll just move it up, and I'm going to make this a base. So I'm going to call it base. Okay? And I'm going to give it a color black so I know it's a base. If I take it and press Control X to duplicate it, and we'll make this one blue, I can just reset it to default and move it across. We now have two moving platforms which are perfectly aligned on the world axis. If I rotate this one, let's say a little bit like that, and we start to move it on its relative axis, it's going to be now off the world axis. And if I want to bring it back to the world axis, I can select it, press X, come back to world, and it should shift into its right position. Now I can bring it back and get it right where it should be and reset its rotation, and we're aligned. So really important to understand that the surface of the terrain is not your point of reference, but the stick to surface can really disrupt you and throw you out. Because you might just be, without the grid on, moving things around, you press the M key, put it down, you bring it across. Oh, I forgot to turn on the grid, I'll turn the grid on. And then I'll just move this one back. Okay, cool, I'm back on the world grid. You're not, because you're actually aligned vertically to the terrain. So you need to go back to the advanced move, select the axis, come back and click this a few times to get it on the true grid. So that's really important, as you'll see later. Okay, so how do you attach scenery and move things around in a way that's going to make life easier? So I've built this little Lego scene here. We've got our little character, and you may have spent ages meticulously building your model, and then you grab it all and you want to attach it to a moving platform, and you're like, oh, it's not attaching. So the reason is, you can only attach one piece of scenery at a time, and that feels like a nightmare, so you don't want to do that. So what you got to do is understand that anything within an existing group can be attached to another item, like a moving platform or another building, etc. So if I take our item, we select all the pieces and then use create new group, I can obviously move this as a whole. And I would like to be able to attach it to the platform, so I don't have to reposition everything. So once it's grouped, if you edit that group, select all the pieces again, now when you press move and you make sure add to building is on, it will allow you to attach it. And so you click once and you can see the little bounding box there shows that you're now inside the moving platform, and it says it up here, editing moving platform. And yeah, you can basically place your scenery however you want. So you can line it up, you can use the shift key to get the vertical, you can use the control key to move things in a horizontal. But let's just get it rough. And then I'm going to use the advanced move tool to align it. So I want to align this head dead center with the platform, and I'm just going to eyeball it here. And then when we're happy with that, I can move it up above the platform so we don't see it. Okay, now that's done. I just want to show you, you can take this whole item now and of course attach it in a hierarchy chain like we did before. Or you can edit it and you can double click on it, or actually any of the scenery items, to edit the parent. And you can press M on the keyboard again and have add to building on, and you can swap its parent. So we can attach it over here now. And if we do that, it'll belong here. So if I undo it, it'll go back to its old parent, which is what we want. Now, the important thing with the alignment tool is it's going to allow us to maintain the model, but detach various parts for animating purposes. So let's go into the grid, and I'll just go to advanced move, and we'll just turn on the snap and make sure it's at 0.25. That's a good working distance, and you can see it's dropped below the ground, so that's right. And what will happen is I'll just call this the body, right? And if we make this animate on medium, so loop medium, and press play, the whole body is going to spin around, the head with it. But we might want to actually animate the head independent to the body. Okay, so I'm going to just pause that, take this back to on trigger to reset it. So what we can do is duplicate the whole model, and I'm going to press Ctrl X to copy. And with our grid on, I can just move it across. Doesn't matter how far, but give us some distance. And now I've got a complete duplication of this, and that's also called base or body. And I'm going to call this head. So we've got body and head, and in the head model I can just double click on this one and delete anything that's not the head. So let's get in here, and it can be fiddly with all the selection boundary boxes, but there we go, there's the head. And then obviously with the body I'm going to do the same. I'm going to get rid of all the head parts like so. Now, because we've used the grid and things are perfectly aligned, all I have to do is go back to move, so pressing X, and the axis is set to world, and pop it back on. Now these are two separate moving platforms. They're not in a chain, but I can go ahead and animate the head independently to the body, and I can move the body independently to the head. So let's use quarter oscillate fast and loop that, right? And that's kind of cool. So if you just want two independent pieces moving together, you can do that. And when you move them together, you could even group it, so it's grouped, but they're still independent. So if I edit the group, they're still moving independently. But what I'm going to do is I want the head to be in the hierarchical chain. So I want it to have its parent be the body. And this means we can move the body and have the head turn with it, and then have the head move independently. So we'll get it back. So we'll undo the group. We'll just turn these back to on trigger, get the head back on trigger, and let's reset it nicely. Now the head needs to be attached. So this moving platform called head needs to be attached to the body one. So if I press M, just get rid of the grid for a second, and make sure add to building is on, I can literally click on it and go attach to body. And this is where once you click, it's going to place it, and it's going to be misaligned potentially depending on your settings. But if I want it to align back perfectly, because we've used that world grid, I can come in here and press X, turn on the snap, and it has jumped into the world grid perfectly. If I just position it back on like that, now it's in a hierarchical chain and the body and head are attached. So if I click on it once, you can see I'm selecting the body, and if I turn the body on, it's looping like so. But if I double click on the body to edit it, and now I select the head, and you can see the scenery for the body is part of this, and the head is part of this as well. They're all children. But I can animate the head separately. So I'm going to go on loop, and we'll just do, let's do stepped. So now the head is doing this stepped animation. It's going around, but it's also attached to the body. So if I come out and turn the body off, the head is moving independently, but they are linked. And so that's the beauty of the hierarchy and adding complexity to your animations, is the inheritance that happens from the chain up and down. So just one other thing is, if we have decided that this needs to belong as a whole to a different platform, and this is now our new body for whatever reason, perhaps it's part of an existing other chain of complicated animations, I can select the body, and that'll select the head, moving platform, and all the scenery, and I can move it and attach it as a whole as well, so you can jump across. What you can't do is have it just sit by itself, so you can't attach it to nothing. It always has to have a base to belong to. And so yeah, be prepared to move things from one to another, but always having a base platform as sort of your root in the chain is important. And that's that. So absolutely critical for micro animatronics is the ability to create a slider. And in the game we have these really large sliders, the vertical one and the horizontal one. And they are totally impractical for what we're trying to do. So I've actually created a blueprint just to demonstrate this. So if I type in micro, you can download this one on the workshop. I'm going to show you in detail how to create these little micro sliders. So we've got a variety here of ultra fast, very slow, stepped, and a couple of double time ones as well. And the way these work is using rotating platforms to create small, subtle little movements. And I'll just turn this weather off before it rains. If you have a look here, I've got ranging from left to right, almost no movement, very subtle, to a decent amount. And then grouped by speed, so ultra fast, very fast. So you can see the difference here between very fast and ultra fast. And this is to do with the type of animations we can set on the rotating platform. We've got a few options. So what I've done here is only a few of the available, but I find them to be the most useful for creating little subtle movements. So we also have a double arrow, which is just moving in both directions and returning to the origin, whereas these ones are moving in one direction. By using the stepped animations, we can go in little steps. So it takes one movement, two movements, then back. And again, as with all of these, is a greater distance on the right and almost no distance on the left. But these come in very handy when you are doing very subtle facial expressions and things like that, which we'll get into. And then I have some special ones here, which are basically doubled up. And that gives us twice the speed of ultra fast at the cost of doing it twice. So I'll show you what that means. So bump bump, which is really handy when you've got a mouth on a character that you want to move really fast. So that's the sliders, and we can play them all at once, and you can see them all going. But we'll get into how we make them. But this is a fundamental element and really important for micro animatronics. Okay, to create a micro slider you need 4 rotational platforms and a event sequencer. So you can find that under the special effects event sequences. And if you haven't used one before, it allows us to trigger multiple platforms together or on a timeline. So we'll have a look at that. Here's the moving platform. I've labeled it slider base. We're going to just turn it off to on trigger only and change its animation type. I'm going to pick ultra fast because we want to create an ultra fast slider, and that'll determine how quickly it moves. What we can do is color it, and I like to make all the bases black so I know and identify those quickly. Then we need to put it on the grid, so I'm just going to go to advanced move by pressing X and just clicking our axis a few times to get it to jump to the world axis. There it goes. And now we can copy it. So Control X, and I'm just going to drag it out, press, drag it out, press, and again. And we can relabel all of these. So slider 1, slider 2, and the final one I'll call slider attach, because that's going to help us understand this is the one we want to attach scenery to. And I like to make a color coordination that's obvious. So I like to use RGB, so we're going to go with this setup here. And then any way I look at this sequence, I'll go, okay, green is attached to red, blue is attached to green, so RGB. But at the moment, they're all independent and we need to create the chain. So I'll just show you the sequencer here. If we edit the trigger sequence, we can select Add Objects. And if you shift click in the order you want, it'll add these to the timeline. So slider base, 1, 2, and attach. If you really want to be finicky, you can color coordinate these as well to match, just so you know what you're dealing with. And I use the base purple. And so if we play that, all 4 are now triggered together, but they're completely independent. So what we're going to do is, using the move tool, pressing M, can turn off the grid and snap to position. Now it comes on, and I can attach the red to the black, the base, and snap it in and follow this down the chain. So green goes to red and blue goes to green, and now we have a nested chain of 4 rotators. So what happens when we play them now is that the motion is doubled each time. So blue is going 4 times the speed of black because it's inheriting the motion of its parent. So we can use this to our advantage to create an offset. So I'm going to turn this rotational motion into a flat horizontal slider. So we're going to edit the base, and we're going to select the red one and go into advanced move, turn on the rotate snap at 45 degrees and bring it a perfect 180 degrees over on top of itself. We're going to use the move tool to pull this up so we can see what's going on. Now this is where the colors come in handy, because it looks like the hierarchy's changed, but it actually hasn't. So black is still the parent of red, and so forth. What we can do now is press play and notice that the red is no longer moving because it's countering the black. It's been flipped. And then the green is going the opposite direction and blue is going opposite direction, twice as fast. So we need to alternate the blue as well. So let's edit the green and we'll rotate that 180 up as well and pull it up so we can see what we're doing on that plane. And now the blue is stationary as well. So I'll bring the red down a little bit just to get it a little bit neater. And what we're going to do is create an offset horizontally to turn this rotational hinge into a slider. So I'm going to edit the black one, and I'm going to turn on the grid to get an accurate motion or movement. Snapped it up, that's okay, as long as it hasn't moved off this plane. So it's directly above the black one, and I'm going to pull it across the minimum amount. Next, I'm going to edit the green one, and then I'm going to grab the blue one and bring this back directly over the black one by using the grid. If I was to press M, it will still snap onto the grid, which is fun. So there we go. We've created this offset. So red is 0.25 out and blue is 0.25 back towards the black. And this creates an oscillating slider. So watch the blue one here. It goes to the right and then left and returns to its origin. If we want to turn this into a one-dimensional slider, so it starts and goes only in one direction and then returns, we can select the red one and rotate the lot 180 this direction. Now what's happening is the motion for the blue one is going to start here and then end where it started, but only travel one direction. So that's how you create the two. You've got an oscillating slider and I guess one-dimensional slider. So a slider's distance is directly proportional to the gap between here and the base and here and the middle pieces. So we need to make sure that those gaps are identical. And the way that we can do that is using the grid like we did in this example. If they're slightly off, like this one's in, what you'll see is it creates a bit more of a oval movement, which can be useful if that's what you're after. But for our purposes, we want a dead on straight line. And the problem is our grid only goes so small, so 0.25. And what you can do though is use the grid to our advantage with the snapping. So all I have to do is move the red one in and eyeball it. So 0.25 is about right on. And if I want to move this one only like 0.02, there's a little bit of variance there because we can't see the next decimal point, but it does matter at these small scales. So I'll place it down, and then I'm going to edit the green one and grab the blue one, and we'll use the move tool, turn on the grid, and because we're already aligned to the world grid, I can place it and then just bring it right above, snapping it in. And now I know that that is exactly above the black one, and therefore we've got the same gap between the two. And that's back to our oscillating type on a perfect line. And if I want to go back to the one-dimensional one, I edit this red one and rotate it 180. Because the orientation doesn't matter. It's the position or the distance. And now we've got a one-dimensional micro slider moving like so. And that is all there is to it. The distance that you set and then snapping the blue one to match will give you all the distances you could possibly want at that speed. And what I like to do finally is just bring everything on the same sort of plane, and so we can just bring the red down and maybe even a little bit lower, and then I can go to the next level, bring our green up, and then finally our blue, just to make it nice and neat. And here's our little complete package, our micro slider. Anything we attach to the blue will inherit that movement. And so what I do like to do is just come in here and get a triangle. So we'll use the art shapes. You can just search for triangle, place that down, and we can scale it right down to its minimum size. And yeah, using our attachment, just attach it to slider attach. And that's why the naming convention is useful, so we know slider attach is what we want to attach it to, not one of these other pieces like slider 1 to slider attach. And yeah, I'll just come in and eyeball this. This is an optional step, but I think when you've got multiple sliders all over the place and you're trying to remember what is what, these little details really help a lot. And there's our finished piece. So, how do you duplicate this and create multiple sliders? That's the next step. And so we can take this guy and either take the whole lot and duplicate it and use a copy. But the problem is this sequencer that you've copied is now pointing to our original. So when we press play on that one, they're both doing that. So you can make a blueprint of that and then place it, and then it will create a new pointer to the right one. Or you can just come in here, edit it, remove all of those, and then add these instead. And because we're not doing anything too tricky with the positioning of the timing or anything like that for these little sliders, that'll work just well. So for example, this one, if we want to turn it into a oscillating micro slider, it's gonna grab the red layer and we're gonna rotate it 180. And then we're going to take the blue one here and get a little triangle. I'll just rotate that 180 like so and position it there. Make a copy of that. And now we know, okay, that's an oscillating one. And that is a one-dimensional one. And we can, of course, rotate these to create motions in any direction that we like. So it can be at 45 degrees, it doesn't matter. Wherever you place it, that's the way the slider will operate. And importantly, we can create vertical motions as well. So moving the whole thing down like so. And then we just have to attach our scenery. So I'll just grab a ball here as an example, shrink it down. And we can attach it to this guy, and it can be anywhere in the plane. And we've got a little bobbing ball. So micro sliders are the foundation for all of our complex animatronics. And yeah, hopefully that helps. Once you've got two sliders like this, you can actually attach them to each other. So I can take this slider and attach it to that slider there, and we might rotate that one like so. And now we can play that one and that one, and you can place additional sequences and stack them. So I can take this guy and add a sequencer to a sequencer. So I'm going to add both those sequences, and when they both play, you get that sort of effect. So an oscillating up and down looks like a rotation, and if we edit this and try that direction, you can get all kinds of interesting movements. So a bit of a accentuated soaring motion by combining that direction and a one-dimensional direction. So lots of things to try, and that's the beauty of the blueprint is yeah, you can bind them and do different things. You can change the spacings, and you can change the slider's speed. So I can come back to our base here, and we might want to change that to very fast instead. And I can go up the chain and make sure they're all on very fast for this slider. That's important that you do that, because they counter each other, those animations. And so very fast is now a slower slider than the ultra fast. And when you combine these two, you get a different animation again. So combining is the key, and figuring out all of that is part of the fun of experimentation. So it's time to finally get creative and animate a little face. And micro animatronics needs micro little details. And one of the best ways to do that is to create these little shapes out of text. So in the scenery editor, you can place text and scale it right down, and you've suddenly got a lot of detail control. So I like to use like full stops for little eyes, or maybe some brackets for a mouth, things like that. And you can obviously rotate it and create things quite quickly and make silly little kawaii type cute faces and make everything look all cutesy. But that's the basis of a facial thing. But to create an actual animation, you need to lay these things up. And so using our sliders, we can push them past each other to create sort of an animation. So there's like a little blinking eye, for example. And we'll get into that with the sliders. But yeah, one thing I would like to express though is how difficult it is to select text. So for example, I want to select this one here, but I keep selecting that because the bounding box of the font is overlapping. So the only real way I know how to do this well is to actually just click where I want to select and then hit delete until I get the piece. And then I can undo it, and now I can select it with the X, the advanced move. So the undo doesn't disrupt your selection, so it lets you get behind things. So sometimes where there's overlaps, that can be a real pain. Again, as an example, the pupil here is got the shiny piece on it, but I can't select the bit below it, so I can just delete it, select it, and then undo, and now I can move that independently. So that is very important when you're trying to work on this sort of scale. Okay, well, I've got my little eyeball against this grey box, and we want to animate it. So we've got our little slider. So if you remember that, just moves in and out. So I can take this little scenery group, make sure I'm editing it and selecting both those items. And when I press M, I can attach it to the attachment point. And I'll just move that straight on back up to get roughly where it needs to be. And you can move this around and get it perfect. But what you'll see is when I hit play now, it's going to sort of disappear into the mesh behind it. And it does sort of matter that we get close enough. So whoops, I'll edit that one there and just get it right on the point. And now it just sort of disappears. The issue with sliders is you can only make them do their motion and they always return to their starting spot. Same with any of the animation points. So to control a hidden pause, we actually have to have a second one. So I'm going to take this slider and move it on top of this one. So it's attached. So now we've got two sliders, the bottom one and the top one. And when we reposition this on our scene here, just get it right on that box so we can see what we're doing. You can now control either one of these to hide that element. Now the cool thing is with sequences you can trigger other sequences. So I'll just place another one here and we'll add that one and that one. And it will play and I can stagger these out so it'll take a little bit longer as it's overlapping. So you can create effectively as long as pause as you need by duplicating these out. So that's really handy. This is actually a full eye template now. So we're going to select it all and blueprint it. And I just save it in the first slot I've got here. I'll just title it 0 so it's easy to find. And when I come back to blueprints, it should be there. And now we can create as many variations of this as we need. So I'm going to put on the snapping again and we'll just place out a few different ones. So we'll just do 3 for our little tutorial here. And I can come in here and just get rid of that little shiny bit. I'll just do a copy of the pupil so I can remember exactly where it needs to go and I can make my variations. So I'll do a little dash, change the font to get it the right size, maybe scale this a little bit bigger and place it right on top. Now I can get rid of the pupil and we've got our first variation. Next I'll do this one, and let's create a little, smiley eye. Same deal, I'll just copy that up, turn it into a dash. This time I'm going to rotate it like so, and then I'm going to copy it and rotate it like that, and create a little squinty smiley eye. And you can be as creative as you like for all your different variations. So I need to select these, align it with the pupil, and we're going to undo that and delete the pupil. So now we've got 3 variations and a way to hide them. And using a snap, I'm going to go to relative mode this time so it doesn't jump, and we can move it right across on top of the other one like so. And now we need to get rid of those boxes. We can create a sequence to animate our little guy, our little eye. So let's put these here. I'm just going to move the whole lot down to the ground, get back onto the world axis here. And we can control eye visibility. So these ones control hiding the open one. So we'll hide the open and we'll hide the little smiley eye. So when we play that, it just leaves the blink. If we want to reveal the smiley eye, we'll hide the open eye and the blink. And I'll need to move these out. So it really pays to label these. So I'm going to call this one open 1 and open 2. This one can be called blink 1 and blink 2. And this one will be called smile 1 and smile 2. So that when we come into a sequencer, you can see exactly what we're selecting. And we can add these ones, the second versions, to create that overlap. So it's going to hide the open eye and the blink eye a little bit longer to create an extended smiley eye. So you can organize these on the timeline like so. So you can bring all the open ones together, all of the blink ones together. So there you go. It's basically smile and open hiding for a second or half a second, and then hiding the other two to reveal the smiley eye. And that's how you create a little blinking cute little eye. Once you've got all that, you can create a blueprint again, something like this. And create 2 eyes. So it's all about layering it on. Position out there. And we'll bring this guy right up. Need to select all of it. And we can create another sequence. And I'll just add 2 pre-made animations together. And you'll get that effect. Right, but we don't want to stop with just blinking and that'd be that. So what we're going to do is create another motion using another slider. So I might just come back to my blueprint here, and it's fine to use these obviously. So here's a little jiggly one. I might just grab that and we'll just move it over here. So I'm going to move it out to our template. And you might want your eye to move left and right a little bit, or up and down, depending. And so we'll make this one move up and down. So I'm going to use this motion slider and orientate it like so. And just align it somewhere that makes sense. What we can do is call this jiggle, jiggling our eye, and take this 3 sequences and we're going to attach them to this one. Now if I try and do that as a whole, it's not going to work, so we can actually use our group trick. So create a group with those 3 selected because there's the 3 variants there. Now I can select them and now move it and attach it to this slider. And then I can just reposition this down exactly where I want it. And so our current animation that changes the style, we can also add a little jiggle. So we'll come into this sequencer and add the jiggle. And it says jiggle because that's how we labeled it. So when the eye turns into a little smile here, get just a subtle bit of animation, which I think adds a lot. And you can go crazy with this. So you can add as many little sliders as you need to create sideways motion or little blinks that dart around. It's up to you. Okay, so we've got our 2 eye templates blueprinted, and what I can do is with the blueprint, rather than having to do everything all over again, I can just place it and we can use it to create a mouth. And so I'm going to come in and we're going to separate our little eye pieces. And I only need 3, so I will delete this one. And let's just remember which one's controlling what. So it was these here. Yep. And we can move those together. And what I'm going to do is take our little eye and turn it into a mouth. So we'll use this as a little smiley. Like so. Actually, I might use the snap here to get it perfect. And with that one, I can place it like so. And then I'm going to duplicate that to create the bottom of the mouth, and I'll use a little letter C. And we'll go to a different font here. So there's our open mouth. And for our closed mouth, we just need one of those, and we'll do the same thing, the little smiley there. What's this font? Get that back like so. And now I can bring this back together using the snap on relative. So I'll just reselect it. Okay. And I just want to line this up. So let's get this on top. Like so. And now what we got is a mouth template. So I can come into our sequencer here and we'll just get rid of all the old ones. And it's a good idea to rename them. I already did this, so I've got Smile 1 and 2 and Open 1 and 2. So editing this guy, we can add, like we did before, open mouth. And while that's playing, then it'll just be smiling or shut. So we can alternate these as much as we need and go from there. And so now we've got a little mouth. And we can add our little jiggle back in because that's still connected. So this is the jiggle sequencer. And you can play with that to get the exact mouth motion that you want. And so this could be useful for creating a little lip sync or something like that. Yeah, and you just adjust the timing here. And we might want it shut for a little while longer at the end there, so we're going to have a longer smile. And what we'll do is we'll have this looping. So it looks like he's talking. Okay, with that done, I can now select all of this and blueprint it as well. And I'll call this eye, but I'll put it in my little temporary slot. Now what we can do is bring all of this together. So I'm going to take that component there and group it. And our little eye here, group that. And this one too. And we can pull the little mouth somewhere like that. And this eye can go on the other side, like so. And now we have a silly little face on the side of our block. And so we're going to create one more sequencer to tie it all together. Come into favorites and get a sequencer, place that there. And we'll add our mouth and our two eyes. And it's a good idea to name these so we know what we're doing. So I'll just relabel that mouth. And we'll call this one here left eye. And this one right eye. And so we can change the sequence within each of these and then play them in here. So got the mouth doing its thing, and then maybe halfway through we'll do the eyes. And I like just offset them by 1 so it looks a little bit more interesting. So let's give that a go. Now we've got a little cute little face doing its thing. And we can maybe bring these eyes up just a little bit. And you can do things like add eyebrows or whatever else you want to complete the face. But now you've got a little template for a cutie little face. We can go stick it on things, which is all the fun. Okay, well, let's clean this up a little bit. And we've got these leftover blocks. We've got all of our sequences for the left eye, the right eye, and the mouth, and our master sequence. And so we'll just call this face to start. And you can group all of these sequences just to keep them in their order. And that helps you stay organized. So we'll just unselect that and group those ones. Group the mouth. And yeah, it's just about now organizing this in a way that's going to make sense. So it can help to add a label. And so placing something down like this. Left eye. Right eye. And the mouth. And we can select all of that. Let's bring it over here. And I'll probably even just shrink these labels down a bit because they're a little bit big. And the name of the game here is to hide all this. Once you've got your little animation set up, like we have. And so to keep it nicely organized, I might even move the jiggle sequences here. And you can use the grid to get it really clean. But with those selected, I'll just regroup it with the label. And now we can just stack them on top of each other, keep them neat. If we ever want to edit them, they'll be ready to go. And we've got our main sequence here, so I'm going to group all of that for our face and a little play for the face too. And we can basically bring all of it over here, stack it something like that, and save this as a blueprint. So we'll call it Mr. Face and a cute animated face that you can stick onto things. And we'll call it Special Effects. Save that. And so now the fun part is sticking your little face onto things, and when you place this blueprint, you'll be able to do exactly that. So if I come in here and go blueprints, we'll search for our little face. Our favorites, there it is. Now we can plonk that down anywhere we like and select the square and go ahead and attach something. So this is where it's kind of fun. I might look for this pineapple piece and just align it like so. Oh, isn't he cute? So he's having fun. And what you can do is group all of that together, for example, and we can add some further animations to this now. So once you're happy with your little model and you've got your little face there, you can stick this animation on continuous and it will just keep doing its thing. There it goes. That's pretty neat. We just need to move everything down now under the ground. So I've buried him under the ground, so all of the mess is out of the way. And yeah, you can do your regular sort of motion. So we've got the radial platform here, which does the stirring pot sort of motion. And we might make that medium or fast. And we can actually rotate this one like so. And what I'll do is get our little guy here. And because it's a group, we can edit the group, select all the pieces, and attach it to the platform. And because we've got it upside down, you can see it's a little bit of a subtle motion, which I think works quite well. And so Mr. Pineapple is grooving here, and you can go ahead and blueprint this whole thing in one of our test pieces. So we'll just save that. And we'll come back to blueprints. And with it blueprinted, you can place as many of these down as you like. And you could also turn off the radial and actually make it triggerable. So we could add the radial and decide when that's going to play. So we could make it ultra fast and have it play once in a while. And of course, if you turn this to deactivated for a second and we come in and choose something else, I think there's a beach ball, isn't there? Let's try this. Can go ahead and try a different shape. And the thing with a three-dimensional object, like we had on our mushrooms, is you're going to need to adjust the various pieces of the face. So we can come into the radial platform and just adjust these eyes. You might want to rotate them a little bit so they're facing more towards the contour of the ball. We need to bring the little mouth out just a little bit. And likewise for this eye. And just have to move it slightly back so you can see the mouth when it's open. And we might rotate the ball so it's on a consistent bit of colour there. Put this back on trigger. And now Mr. Beach Ball and Pineapple can have a party. So hopefully that helps you understand how we can layer and build sort of animations together. And so these cute little guys could hang out at your pool or whatever else you want to do. And yeah, to bring some more character to this, so there's some more variation, you can go in and edit the animations for each one. Or you can come in and add a little bit more text. So I'm going to grab something like this. And we'll give him some eyebrows. And I just do love how easy it is to create this sort of style. So there you go, you can see the leap now from those little pineapple and bouncy ball to these mushrooms. So I've modeled those up. These are just basic art shapes, and yeah, we've added the little face on top to give it this animated appeal, and it's really quite simple. We've got our radial motion on the singer here and just the mouth changing. On the drummer it's just the eyes, and we've got little arms that are made out of text as well, just rotating back and forth. The drums are bumping up and down and the cymbals are spinning. So just by combining some simple animations and looping them, it does give a pretty cool effect. Even the little bass player's head here is just bobbing back and forth, and we're just rotating one little arm there. So yeah, he's not even blinking or anything, but combined, I think it came across really well. So Hopefully by now, following that tutorial, you can see how this was put together. And I'm really excited to see what you come up with, if you can apply these techniques, and if you have any feedback, please let me know. But as always, thank you so much for joining me on this quite long tutorial, and yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks everyone. Bye.